guys, it's Natalia, the founder of Upskill Me. I'm filming this today in Malta. The wind is a little crazy, so sorry about my hair, but I'm really enjoying it. I'm on the island of Gozo, and I don't think I've seen a place like this before. It's an open-air museum. So let's get started with something practical for non-native speakers. Today I want to show you one simple exercise that can help non-native speakers advance their business presentations in English. It's very simple. It's tremendously simple.
It's that simple.
However, if you do this exercise regularly, it helps you, as a non-native speaker, it helps you deliver your message with more confidence, and it builds up the inner confidence when you speak. I'm going to say two simple things. Please don't get disappointed too early, because they're very simple. Number one, the exercise is reading out loud. And number two, we're going to learn to do it from children. Yes, you heard right, reading out loud. And believe me, I have always thought that it's the easiest exercise that you can do, but when I work with people, every time I discover that people have no idea how to do that, and everybody gets bored when people read their presentations, right? You probably also remember this college professor who was reading the lectures, and you just had to sit there and bear with him or her. So we all know that it's boring. We all know that it doesn't work.
It doesn't work that way.
Yet, even here, I attended the AI conference, and even here, I see that people get up on stage to present their innovative solution, and they turn their back to the audience and they start reading their slides. It's something that's absolutely unacceptable. So, on the one hand, it's boring. On the other hand, everybody uses it. I would like to suggest a compromise, and what I mean is that most people do this exercise incorrectly. Yes, you heard me right, they actually read incorrectly. If your business language is English, or if you present in English regularly, you probably can relate to this. And if you haven't had the situations, they will come, believe me. There will be situations when you need to deliver a presentation and you absolutely have no time to prepare, zero time. Like your boss tells you need to present something tomorrow, or you're traveling to a conference and you're suddenly given a speaking slot, so you need to say something. Most often people will plan their presentation so they will know exactly what they want to say, but they won't have the time to practice the delivery. And reading out loud is a perfect exercise to practice your delivery. Here is the problem.
Donnie, listen. We have a problem, okay?
The problem is that most non-native speakers, and even native speakers, read their slides. And when they read them, it's boring as hell. And even if they're putting effort into reading, it still sounds monotonous, mechanic, and not interesting. It doesn't captivate the audience, and it doesn't sound as anything interesting. The content of the presentation very often can be quite exciting, but people are unable to make other people feel it or see it because their delivery is just very weak. The ear of a human being likes hearing a story. When you read, you're killing your story. There is no story. However, and now I'm getting to my point, we all want to hear a story. But when we read, it doesn't sound really beautiful. But at the same time, think about children. Can you remember how your parents were reading to you when you were a kid? Or if you have children, remember how you read bedtime stories to your children. I'm sure you do. Think about it for a second. How do you read bedtime stories to your kids? Or can you remember how someone was reading out loud to you? Usually when we read to children, we read. We're not making this up, and we haven't prepared this presentation in the form of a fairy tale, right? We don't really learn the fairy tales by heart. We simply sit down next to a child and we read. However, to a child, it doesn't sound like you're reading. I can remember how my parents were reading to me, and I could see everything they were reading. I mean it. I could imagine everything they were reading. If there was a dragon in the story, you know, my parents would make funny voices to let me know that it's a dragon. If there was a princess, you know, she would have a squeaky voice. If there was a mouse, it would also have a squeaky voice. If there was a knight or a prince, you know, my parents would really give effort and make funny voices and make sure that I can imagine whatever they were telling me so that I can imagine the story. But in fact, they were reading. They were simply reading the text. And because I couldn't see what they were reading, they were helping me imagine it.
Try to imagine this.
Basically, you're doing exactly the same when you give a business presentation. You know what you're talking about. People don't. You have seen your slides before. They haven't. Basically, you are reading what you already know, and they cannot see what you're reading, and they have no idea what's coming next. This is why it's your job to help them see what you're talking about, to help them imagine what it is you're talking about. But when you deliver a presentation, when you deliver a public talk, your job is to paint pictures with your words. So people can't just hear what you're saying, but they can see what you're saying. That's very important. So how can we learn from children? I'm not implying that we need to start making funny voices and everything when we deliver business presentations, but we can use the same principle. Let me show you a few examples. If you cannot really remember how your parents were reading to you, or if you cannot analyze the way you read to your children, just look at a few examples. Here is how people read children's books.
Oh no, my money dog just jumped on me. I'm grimy and slimy from cap to socks.
Corduroy is a bear who once lived in a toy department of a big store. Day after day, he waited with all of the other animals.
Please don't kill it, she sobbed. It's unfair. Mr. Arable stopped walking. Fern, he said gently, you will have to learn to control yourself.
So you see, my point is that when you read to children, you make sure they understand what you're reading. However, when people give business presentations, what they care about is that they look good. They don't really care if people hear and understand what they're saying. They care about their reputation. They care if they look good in front of their boss or if they look good in front of their colleagues. But we all win if everybody understands and if everybody can see whatever you're saying. You know, when I was in primary school, we had this funny task, speed reading. We had to read as many words as we could in 1 minute. And everyone in the class was drilled to do this exercise as fast as they can. All I remember is that I was fast and I could read a lot of words per minute. But what I also remember is that I would look at the text that I have just read and I would realize that I have no idea what I have just read. I was so focused on the form that I had no idea what I was reading. So I needed another minute to look at the text silently and to read it once again, this time not really out loud, to understand the meaning of what I've just read. And I would experience it again and again because we were drilled and we would do this exercise quite often, and every time, same story. I could read everything that was written there, but I never understood what I was reading if I focused on speed and if I focused on the form. And believe me, a lot of non-native speakers focus too much on the form when they deliver a presentation in a foreign language. They are afraid that they might look stupid. They are afraid that their level of English or whatever foreign language they present in is not enough.
Not enough.
Or is lower than the level at which they present in their first language. And they simply worry too much about pronouncing things correctly, about making sure that they look good in front of their foreign colleagues. They're worried about the words they're using. They are afraid to forget words, or they're afraid to forget their script. And what happens is that we get the same effect. People deliver a presentation, but no one in the room understands what it was about. If I couldn't understand my text, believe me, others couldn't either. So when you read your slides, nobody in the room understands what you're reading. Here's how I suggest you can practice, and this is how I practice myself. We should learn to read our presentations in such a way that no one can tell we're reading. Yes, that's the trick. You will be reading them technically, but people will hear that you're telling a story. They will not hear that you're reading.
Great story.
And the effect will be the same as when you read to your children. Children know that you're reading, but for them it sounds like a story. It doesn't sound like you're reading. So, here's what you do. The number one thing, if you don't have children, watch the examples in this video a couple more times, and I'm going to post links to those videos in the comments, and I'm going to leave out a section at the end of the video so that you can listen, practice, imitate, repeat. And if you do have children, when you read bedtime stories to them tonight, give some effort. Make sure that a child can see and imagine the story that you're telling them, and you will understand what I mean. There will be situations in your life when you will have to read your presentation. You simply will not have time to prepare. So if you want to read it in a way that it sounds meaningful and impactful and confident, what you do first is you read the text to yourself. This is essential. The reason why I couldn't understand what I was reading when I was reading for speed at school is that I didn't know the text before I started reading. You know, if I see the text which is written in my first language, of course I can read anything, but it doesn't mean I can understand it. When you do it in a second language, it's more complicated than this. So before you start reading to the audience, you need to read it to yourself silently, and you need to understand everything that's in the text. Understand every word combination, and if there are some word combinations that you're not sure about, please go and check them out. If you're not sure how to pronounce certain words, also go check them out. There are a lot of strategies to do that. You can use English dictionaries to check the pronunciation of the words that you're not sure about. And you can click on the video right now to find a video where I explain how to use English dictionaries. After you have read it to yourself as many times as necessary, and after you have understood everything that this text means, think to yourself, how do you feel about this text? And what feeling do you want to deliver? Not the words, but what feeling do you want to deliver? What emotions are in the text?
What feeling would that be?
It's very important because sometimes the key message is not the words, is what you feel about these words and how you feel about those words. Maybe you want to show that you're surprised by the situation. Maybe you want to show that you're outraged. Maybe you want to show that you're puzzled. Maybe you want to be a confident leader who is going to reassure people in the audience that it's going to be okay. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you're presenting a new idea and you're not sure how people will take it. It's very important to focus on this because your intonation will depend on it. Then you sit down and you practice reading your text with the right intonation, having this emotion in mind. What do you actually want to deliver? Intonation is everything. Words don't matter so much because people have a universal skill that doesn't need to be trained. In any language and in any culture, people can feel. People can feel when something is wrong. People can feel when you fake it. And people, they just feel a lot. People feel everything that's between the words. So you want to sit down and you want to practice reading the text. And when you read the text out loud to yourself, please record yourself so you can listen to the recording later and you can check if you managed to convey this emotion. Does it sound like a monotonous reading exercise, or does it sound like an exciting story to you? And don't listen to your own recording right after you read. I mean, you can, but it's not going to help much because when we're emotionally attached to our own text, our own presentation, or even our own work, you know, we're all worried and nervous about how we look on camera and how other people see us and how they perceive us. Listen to your own recording the next day, even better 3 days after you do it. If you have time, a week later, but keep recording. So keep recording, keep reading, and keep recording every day. And then you will be able to see the progress. You will be able to track your progress, how much your reading has improved over time. Let's say over a week, because a week is a good time span. And that's it. If you do this exercise regularly, you'll be able to tell stories when you read.
And what's your story?
You'll be able to read in such a way so that people will not notice that you're reading. But for this, you need to master intonation, and it's essential that you understand the text before you start reading out loud. You need to read it to yourself first, and then you need to imagine that you're reading to your children. And you have to give effort to make sure that children hear what you're saying and that your children can see the picture that you're painting with your words. And you want to make sure that children can not only hear what you're saying, not only understand what you're saying, but they can imagine the whole story that's going on in the book. The same applies to business presentations. It's communication. You want to be heard, and believe me, every time I work with non-native speakers and I ask them, what's the biggest challenge you're facing right now in business? They all tell me, when I present in English, I don't feel confident enough. I need more confidence. And I simply want to be understood. Everybody wants to be understood. Everybody wants to be heard. This is a very normal human need. But you're going to help yourself a little bit, and you're going to make sure you're helping other people as well to understand you. You need to work on your accent, you need to work on your pronunciation, you need to work on your storytelling skills. And when you read out loud and record yourself and keep track of your progress, you're actually focusing on diction, pronunciation, because when you listen to yourself, you can tell if you mispronounce some words, or if you can let other people listen to this recording. You can also receive feedback and then improve your presentations based on that feedback. You're also practicing chunking. That means pausing in the right places to help people hear you, so you're mastering the rhythm of the English language. And most importantly, you're practicing focus and attentiveness. You know why it sounds monotonous and not interesting while people read? Because people don't focus and people don't give a damn. They simply, their task is to read the sentence until the full stop. So they're giving themselves a task to read the sentence until it stops, until the full stop. But they're not giving themselves a job to deliver the meaning of the sentence. And in order to deliver the meaning, you need to slow down. You need to understand the meaning first, then you need to understand who's in front of you. How do you communicate that meaning to them? Because if you read to children, if your audience is children, then it makes sense to make funny voices, to act a little bit, and to say a few things louder and to say some things quieter. But if you speak to your partners, if you speak to business audiences, this will work for an introduction, but you can't deliver the entire speech like this. So you need to break it down into meaningful segments. You need to pause in the right places to make sure that people hear you. And you can only, it all comes with practice, and the way you practice by continuously learning to deliver the gist of the message, by breaking down huge pieces of information into meaningful segments and making sure you can not just say those words or segments full of words to people, but you are able to paint pictures with your words. It's very important to be a painter when you speak. People don't remember what they hear. People understand and remember what they can imagine. Well, I guess that's it for today. I would like you to try to learn from children, and you can hear 2 more examples at the end of this video. Practice, let me know how it goes, and if you do practical exercises that I talk about in my videos, you can always come back for feedback. I don't charge anything for that, but we can have a conversation. You can let me know how you're doing, and I can guide you and give you feedback so that you can continue practicing and improving your presentation skills in a second language. See you in the next video.
So Brer Fox picked up Brer Rabbit and the Tar Baby and flung them both head over heels, ears over feet into the briar patch, just like Brer Rabbit wanted.
Oh, but look, a little mole popped up. And the mole said, "This is my rock I'm digging down here. Go and scratch the..." Oh, just as it was getting good.
One morning, a little girl stopped and looked straight into Corduroy's bright eyes. "Oh, Mommy," she said, "look, there's the very bear I've always wanted."
Tub laundromat. Hey, listen to those 3 rhyming words. Rub, dub, tub. There are lots of people there, and the machines clink, clank, whistle, and whir as they wash and dry the clothes.